Thanks for joining me today at InvestorIdeas.com, Cleantech and Climate Change Podcast, looking at today's problems and solutions for the future. I'm your host, Dawn Van Zandt, founder of InvestorIdeas.com, and hoping to share our way of making a difference in climate change. Good morning and welcome to today's podcast. Today I would like to start the conversation about climate change initiatives versus the real critical issues of water, land, and air pollution. As global governments push consumers to go down the electric vehicle path, what are they doing to protect us from the major polluters of the air we breathe, our oceans, and the soil we grow our food on? These corporations have the option of buying carbon credits, going to court and paying fines, not paying fines, or lobbying governments to continue their dirty path. Consumers are trying their best, from recycling to buying electric vehicles, using less water, growing their own food, but we will barely put a dent in the problem if the governments and big corporations don't address the real pollution issues. So let's look at some of the top 100 polluters out there and what they are doing. This data from Political Economy Research Institute for the Top 100 Air Polluters Index, a 2022 report based on 2020 data, shows Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway as one of the top 10 air polluters. The world considers him one of the best and most respected investors, and yet this is his contribution to the planet that we live on. Looking at the top 10 from their list, number 1 is Lyondale-based Industries, number 2 is BASF, number 3 is Becton Dickinson, number 4 is Salzgitter, number 5 is Huntsman Corp, number 6 is Dow Inc., number 7 is Cannabis International, number 8 is Celanese, number 9 is Berkshire Hathaway, and number 10 is Nove Inc. So looking at the top 100 water polluters index from the Political Economy Research Institute from that same data the same year, Northrop Grumman is the top culprit. And how do we deal with this? The U.S. government rewards them with billions of dollars in contracts. According to an article from the Global Times, the U.S. used to have dozens of defense contractors before the post-Cold War merger boom, but nowadays there are only 5 giants that jointly dominate the U.S. huge arms industry: Boeing, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. The Big 5 alone routinely split more than $150 billion in Pentagon contracts, or nearly 20% of the total Pentagon budget, said the article published in May. Looking at the top 10 in the list, again, Northrop Grumman is number 1, Lyondale-based Industry is number 2, Nexera Energy is number 3, Dow Inc. is number 4, 5 is Cargill, 6 is Celanese, 7 is Clayton, Dubilier and Rice, 8 is Huntsman Corp, 9 is Cannabis International, and 10 is Duke Energy. So looking from the consumer side, when it comes to the actual benefits and impacts of buying an electric vehicle, there are very different results out there based on which study you read, according to carbonbrief.org. A recent working paper from the group of German researchers at the think tank Institute for Economic Research found that electric vehicles will barely help cut CO2 emissions in Germany over the coming years. It suggests that in Germany, the CO2 emissions of battery electric vehicles are, in fact, best case, slightly higher than those of a diesel engine. This study was picked up in international media, from the Wall Street Journal running an editorial, and also picked up in Autoblog, Individual Research, and other reports. Other recent studies of electric cars in Germany have reached the opposite conclusion. One study found that emissions from EVs are up to 43% lower than diesel vehicles, and another detailed that in all cases examined electric vehicles have lower lifetime climate impacts than those of internal combustion engines. These differences arise from the assumptions used by researchers, and as Professor Jeremy Michael, director of the Vehicle Electrification Group, tells Carbon Brief, which technology comes out on top depends on a lot of things. These include which specific vehicles are being compared, what electricity grid mix is assumed, if marginal or average electrical emissions are used, what driving patterns are assumed, and even the weather. And talking about the weather, we saw that cold weather effect on electric vehicles last year in Texas. Bloomberg reported today that the Texas grid operator is seeking to secure an extra 3,000 megawatts of power reserves this winter to avoid an unacceptable risk of emergency in extreme conditions. The Electric Reliability Council of Texas estimates that there is an almost 20% probability that the state grid, if manages, will enter into an energy emergency alert, or an EEA, if there is a repeat of last year's December storms. ERCOT said in a notice Monday procuring 3,000 megawatts will cut that probability to less than 10%. So the next time you recycle or wait a year or more for your electric vehicle to show up, that may never show up, and you may not have the power grid to support it, reach out to your members of government and tell them to stop rewarding or ignoring the pollution that we are facing from big corporations, and hold them as accountable as they are trying to make you. Thanks. That's it for today. Do something great for this beautiful planet each and every day. To hear more Cleantech podcasts, visit the Cleantech and Climate Change page on Investor Ideas. You can find it on our top template. Also, Investor Ideas has a lineup of other podcasts and themes, including the AII, the Crypto Corner, our cannabis podcast called Cannabis News and Stocks on the Move, rated one of the top investor podcasts in the sector, Play by Play, a podcast looking at sports and esports news, and Exploring Mining. To listen to any of our podcasts, visit our podcast page on Investor Ideas at investorideas.com/audio. And a reminder, you can hear our podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, and most audio platforms available to you. If you like any of our podcasts, we would appreciate you recommending them or reviewing them on your audio platform. And to help you follow and track clean tech and renewable energy stocks, Investor Ideas has created a directory of publicly traded stocks in the sector. You can find that by going to our homepage, looking on the sidebar and looking at renewable energy and environmental themes, and you'll find our stock directories there. Investor Ideas does remind all of investors to read our disclaimers and disclosures on our site. You can find them at investorideas.com/about-disclaimer.asp. It is important to read these. And this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investment involves risk and a possible loss of investment. Thank you again and have a great day.